We're here today at PlaceTech London with Weavr and social, and we're going to talk about something very close to my heart, good comms in tech. Let's start with a quick introduction.
So I'm Emmanuelle Johaadien. I'm the Market Development Director at Weavr. Weavr is in the fintech space and we offer plug-and-play finance solutions.
So I'm Sara Donnelly. I'm Director of Social Tech Communications, which is a specialist tech division of Social Communications Group. My role is to work particularly in the proptech space, so working with technology businesses that are targeting the property and construction and built environment sector.
Okay, and good comms is so important when it comes to tech. We've all seen examples of how not to do it, and websites you don't know what the company does, and too much jargon, not speaking plain English. Just how important is it when you're going to market with Weavr to get the comms right?
I think it's critical. It's critical whether it's getting it right for our target markets, for the influencers, for the industry, for our peers, for our VCs. So it's a really good comms is really critical. Over the past 2 years and a bit, just looking at our website in terms of how we position ourselves, how we describe ourselves, how do we define who we are, the message, the narrative has very much evolved. When I first joined, I think we still used the term banking as a service, perhaps very briefly. Then we moved to embedded banking, embedded finance, and we're still using embedded finance, but now we've really sort of narrowed down who we are in terms of plug-and-play finance. Now, having said that, that's the sort of the headline. But we need to make sure that the narrative is correct, and that's sort of work in progress, but we're starting to sort of making what we do relevant to the business and the operating models of our target market.
Yeah. Why does it matter so much, Sara, in your opinion?
I think it's really important. I think when you think about the target markets, and quite often businesses have multiple sectors that they're targeting, it's really important to focus on the benefits of your solution rather than the features of it, for example. So for an end user, whether they're B2B or B2C, it's important for them to understand, for my business, what are the challenges, what are my pain points, and how will that technology help me solve those problems. That can only be delivered by consistent PR and comms that really align with the narrative that Emmanuelle's just talked about.
And does that mean using industry language that's related to those people and their roles as well?
Definitely, it's having a real understanding of those sectors that you're trying to target. Again, it's not about the jargon that you understand within your business, it's about the jargon that they understand in theirs. And if you're targeting the property space, what is the language that they use? If you're targeting the education space, what is the language that they use, and really tailoring those messages, staying core to what your values and your core messages are, but tailoring it to those different audiences. And
does that change as you're scaling? You've gone through a big fundraising round. How important is the comms to delivering on the targets that you've got when you're scaling as well?
Well, it's important because as we scale, as we grow, we need to have absolute clarity in terms of the narrative that we have on messaging for our VCs. Our VCs also represent us and can make introductions, so we need to provide them with the right information, the right comms as well to enable them to do that. And also as we scale and grow, we are sort of moving up the ladder in terms of the type of opportunities that we're going after. We may have sort of gone after more sort of startup, sort of seed sort of stage early on. Now we are more sort of targeting at scale-ups. We're going to be moving to sort of more enterprise deals as well over the next few months and the next year or so. So good comms is going to be critical there, because you're no longer speaking to a couple of co-founders or maybe a small team. You're talking to a very large enterprise, maybe multinational, decision-making center is not necessarily going to be in the geography that you're going after. You know, you're going to be talking to numerous stakeholders who just don't have the bandwidth or, you know, don't have the appetite to really understand in detail what it is you do. So you really have to have good comms to actually position what you do as part of their operating model.
Yeah, it's brilliant insight. So it sounds like an audience can have different segments, or there's different audiences. Is that something that tech firms, in your experience, have to navigate through?
Yeah, definitely. I think this is the sort of the audience research stage. So when you're sort of developing a comms plan, it's understanding, you know, what are those target segments, and often investors is, you know, that in itself is a segment that you're looking to target quite often. And again, it's, you know, it's what are the core messages that will resonate with them, and building a narrative around that. I think when we think about the startups and the scale-ups and the journey that they go on, it's sort of getting those key milestones and planning for those as well, and making sure that the communications that you're putting out represents, you know, that those key milestones, those fundraisers, you know, at key points throughout the business journey.
Yeah, the fundraisers tend to be spent either on product development or go-to-market, sales and marketing. So it's really core to the business plan, isn't it? If they're going to get there, then the message has to be clear and understood. What sort of trends are we seeing in 2022, and what's the outlook for proptech and real estate innovation, do you think, Emmanuelle?
So what I've seen a few things. I think it's very clear that in the sort of property management sector, vacation rental, there is a very, very big trend in terms of consolidation. A lot of acquisitions have taken place, probably accelerated with COVID. And I think the other trend that I found quite interesting, talking to people here today and yesterday, is how some of the sort of consumer, sort of non-proptech, sort of consumer applications sort of moving into proptech.
And would you agree that we're seeing the influence of consumer come into the business-to-business world, and is that reflected in language and plain English? And
consumer-driven demand, I think, has never been more important. It's never been more prolific, and I think businesses are realising that, again, accelerated by COVID undoubtedly, that consumers expect things now. And tenant voice, when you think about housing associations, for example, tenant voice, tenant engagement, and that engagement piece is really important, and people want to engage with businesses in the way that best works for them, whether that's WhatsApp, whether that's Messenger, whether that's email or calls. And from a property technology perspective, I think that's filtering through into a lot of different solutions that are emerging now, which is all around how you as a business can deliver on those demands that consumers are sort of gearing up towards, and what technology can do to help deliver that.
So Sara, I was going to ask you about advice for tech companies when they're trying to come up with a product statement to simply say what it is they do, which I still see so many failing at that, and they have jargon, or it's too technical and scientific for property people. What would your advice be for coming up with a clear product statement?
Yep, so at Social, we run social sprints with clients, and the purpose of those is to really get into the detail of what it is that stands you apart. You know, what are those core messages? And it's a really immersive process. It's all about really focusing in on what it is that you do, what the benefit is to your different core markets, your different core segments, then developing the messages that help tell that story. And we sort of break it down by sort of a hierarchy, almost like a house. So you've got your core message at the top, and then you've got your key messages below that. So what's your overarching message? What are your key messages? And then it's breaking that down into a sort of chatty version, and that's the piece, I think, that you can have your formal insight, this key message is what is your USP. We are, the leading plug and play in the property tech space, for example. The chatty version of that is something that we would explain as if you were telling it to your friend, how would that sound? And I think that's a really good way of getting that product statement or that company message out there is building it around that idea of what your core message is, what's your USP, and how do I break that down and consolidate it into one sentence effectively.
Yeah, that sort of conversational language you use in the pub, like you say, as you would explain it to a friend. And any trends that you're seeing in proptech or in the comms around tech, or anything in sort of 2022 that you've seen?
I think the thing that we're seeing a lot of is a lot of language around net zero and a lot of technology around that space, and ESG as well. So at Social, we've got Social Tech Comms, which I head up, but we also have a net zero division and an ESG division. And the reason for those is that that's the way the market is moving forward. So we're seeing a lot of technology solutions that, a little like Emmanuelle was saying earlier, that's broadening out what they do to cover those sort of sectors and finding solutions that can cover off those areas for their clients. So how, digital twins, for example, how can we work with that kind of technology to make sure that our customers or our clients are really maximising on their net zero proposition. So I think net zero and ESG and the tech solutions that help businesses deliver on those are really key things coming through at the minute.
And similarly, using an evidence base, using case studies, is that something that's important from the tech company storytelling point of view?
Yeah, that's very important. So that's something we are developing, case studies, use cases, case studies, very sort of specialist sort of white papers in terms of looking at specific segments. I think it's all about making it relevant, and it's also providing some proof points and also some real life example as to how our technology, how services can apply themselves to what people are doing and to the core service and the core offering.
So to add to that point, case studies, I couldn't agree more. They're so important, and I think there's a real importance for businesses to build credibility, and the best way to do that is to have ambassadors for your brand. They're internal ambassadors, but also your customers are one of the strongest ambassadors you could have. So getting those sort of customer testimonials, customer case studies early on, and using them to tell the story and to bring to life the product in a way that best relates to that to that sector. It's really quite powerful. Thanks
very much to Emmanuelle from Weavr and Sara from Social. Thanks for joining us at PlaceTech London, and see you again soon.